They threw us out.
On Christmas Eve.
Our own son.
20 degrees outside.
We built that house.
Brick by brick.
43 years.
Gone in one night.
But he forgot something.
We're not helpless old fools.
We're survivors.
And we had a plan.
Let me tell you how this nightmare started. My name is Arthur, and this is my wife of 45 years, Eleanor. We weren't always the people you see today, sitting in this modest apartment, telling our story to strangers on the internet. No, we used to own a 7-bedroom mansion in Oakwood Hills, the kind of place with a circular driveway and those ridiculous marble lions at the entrance. Our son Michael picked those lions, by the way. Said they made the house look important. I thought they looked like something from a Vegas casino, but Eleanor convinced me to let him have his way. That was always our mistake, wasn't it, dear? Letting Michael have his way.
Oh, Arthur, you know I blame myself every single day. Michael was our only child, and I spoiled him rotten. When he was young, I'd make excuses for his behavior. When he got detention for cheating on exams, I'd tell the principal he was just too advanced for regular coursework. When he wrecked his first car drag racing, I convinced his father to buy him a better one. I created a monster, and I know that now. But back then, I just saw my baby boy. I saw the little blonde kid who used to bring me dandelions from the garden and call them Mommy's sunshine flowers. I held on to that memory for too long. Way too long.
The real trouble started about 8 years ago, when Michael married Vanessa. Now, I'm not one of those men who automatically hates his daughter-in-law, but Vanessa was different. She came from money, old money, the kind where your grandfather's name is on a hospital wing. And she made damn sure everyone knew it. The first time Eleanor and I met her, she walked into our home, looked around our living room, and said, "Oh, how quaint. It's like a museum of the 90s. Eleanor laughed it off, thought she was just nervous and trying to make a joke. But I saw the way her eyes moved across our furniture, calculating, judging. That woman looked at our lives like we were garage sale merchandise.
I tried so hard with Vanessa, I really did. I invited her to lunch, to go shopping, to family dinners. I asked about her work, her friends, her parents. But nothing I did was ever good enough. When I'd cook Michael's favorite meal, pot roast with roasted vegetables, she'd push the food around her plate and say, "I'm on a cleanse right now, Eleanor. My nutritionist says red meat is basically poison." When I'd wear my nice Sunday dress to their events, she'd show up in something that cost more than our monthly mortgage and make little comments like, "Oh, Eleanor, vintage is so in right now," even though my dress was just 5 years old from Macy's. Everything I did, everything I said, she found a way to make me feel small.
But here's what really gets me. Michael didn't just tolerate this treatment of his mother, he encouraged it. 6 years ago, we were having dinner at their place. One of those awful formal dinners where you're not allowed to start eating until everyone's seated and there are more forks than fingers on your hand. I made a joke, something harmless about a politician on TV, and Michael cut me off mid-sentence. He said, "Dad, nobody wants to hear your outdated opinions. This isn't the 50s anymore." Vanessa laughed, this high-pitched cackle that sounded like breaking glass, and Michael smiled at her like he'd just won a prize. That's when I realized we'd lost him. Our son was gone, and in his place was this stranger who cared more about impressing his wife than respecting his parents.
The change happened gradually, then suddenly, if that makes sense. For the first few years of their marriage, Michael would still call us once a week, maybe twice. We'd talk about his work. He was a financial consultant at some big firm downtown, and he'd ask about our health, our plans. But those calls got shorter and shorter. 10 minutes became 5 minutes, became 3 minutes of "yeah, Dad, Mom, listen, I gotta go, Vanessa and I have dinner reservations." Then one day, Arthur noticed something that made his blood run cold. "Show them the list, honey."
I kept a calendar, a physical paper calendar in my office. Old school, I know, but I like seeing the whole month laid out in front of me. And one night I couldn't sleep, So I went down to my office and started counting. In 2019, Michael called us 42 times. In 2020, 27 times. In 2021, 13 times. In 2022, 8 times. 8 calls in an entire year. And here's the kicker. 6 of those 8 calls were him asking to borrow money. Not big amounts, mind you, 5,000 here, 10,000 there. He'd always say it was for a business opportunity or an investment property. And like the fool I was, I'd wire him the money within 24 hours. Never asked for it back. Never even brought it up again. That's what fathers do, right? We provide.
What Arthur isn't telling you is that I found something else. I was cleaning out some old boxes in our attic, this was about 3 years ago, and I found Michael's college graduation gift from us. It was a beautiful Omega watch, cost us nearly $6,000 back in 2003. We'd saved for months to buy it, skipped vacations, ate cheaper meals, also our son could have something special to mark his achievement. And there it was, in a dusty box in our attic, the price tag still attached. He'd never even worn it. Never even taken it out of the box. I sat on that attic floor and cried for 2 hours straight. Arthur found me there, holding that watch, and I asked him, when did we become so disposable?
That watch incident should have been our wake-up call, but we're stubborn people, Eleanor and I. We kept hoping things would improve. We kept making excuses. He's busy with work, we'd say. Young couples need space, we'd rationalize. But the truth is, we were afraid. Afraid to confront him, afraid to lose him completely, afraid to admit that our son had become someone we didn't recognize. And that fear, that pathetic, weak fear, is what nearly destroyed us. Because fear makes you accept the unacceptable. It makes you smile when you should be screaming.
The real nightmare began 2 years ago. Arthur had a health scare, a minor heart attack. Nothing too serious, thank God, but serious enough that he needed to slow down. We'd been running a small property investment company, nothing fancy, just buying and fixing up houses, then renting them out. We had 17 properties, all paid off, generating about $32,000 in monthly rental income. It was our retirement fund, our security blanket. And when Arthur got sick, we realized we needed to make a plan for what would happen to those properties if something happened to us.
So we did what any reasonable parents would do. We called Michael and asked him to meet us for lunch. Neutral territory, a nice restaurant downtown, the kind of place where people don't make scenes. We told him about the properties, about the company, about how we wanted to teach him the business so he could take over eventually. We weren't giving him anything yet, understand that. We were offering him an opportunity to learn, to work alongside us, to prove himself responsible. His response? He pulled out his phone, showed us a spreadsheet he'd already prepared, and said, "I've done the math, Dad. Those properties are worth approximately $4.2 million if you sold them today. But if you sign them over to me now, I can leverage them for a much bigger portfolio. Trust me, I'm a professional."
The way he said, "Trust me, Arthur, do you remember? It wasn't a son asking his father for guidance. It was a salesman closing a deal. He had a folder with him, a thick manila folder, and he slid it across the table like we were in a business meeting. Inside were documents, legal papers, all prepared in advance. He'd gone to a lawyer before even talking to us. He'd planned this whole thing out. And the worst part? The papers weren't about him learning the business. They were transfer documents. He wanted us to sign over everything, every property, every account, every asset. Just sign our lives away to our 38-year-old son who couldn't be bothered to call us on our birthdays.
I pushed that folder back across the table so hard it knocked over Vanessa's wine glass. Red wine, expensive by the looks of it, spilled all over their side of the table. And you know what Michael did? He didn't ask if we were okay, didn't try to understand why we were upset. He stood up, looked down at me, and said, "You're making a huge mistake, old man. I'm trying to help you, and you're too proud and too stupid to see it." Then he walked out. Vanessa stayed behind just long enough to dab at her dress with a napkin and say, You know, Eleanor, this is why Michael gets so frustrated with you both. You're stuck in the past. Maybe it's time to accept that the world has moved on without you.
I sat there in that restaurant, watching my son's back disappear through the door, and I felt something break inside me. Not my heart, I'd already been breaking for years. It was something else, something deeper. It was hope. I'd been hoping that somewhere inside that angry, entitled man was still my little boy. But he was gone. Arthur paid the bill, apologized to the waiter for the mess, and we drove home in complete silence. When we got back to the house, our house, the 7-bedroom mansion that we'd bought with our own money and our own sweat, I looked at Arthur and said, "We need to protect ourselves. Michael isn't going to stop."
Eleanor was right, as usual. Over the next 6 months, Michael's behavior escalated. He'd show up at our house unannounced, always with Vanessa, always with some new scheme for why we should sign over the properties. One time he brought a financial advisor who spent 2 hours explaining how we were asset-rich but cash-poor, and how we were missing out on massive tax advantages. Another time he brought an estate planning lawyer who kept talking about avoiding probate and protecting our legacy. It was all bullshit, all of it. Fancy words designed to confuse 2 old people into giving away everything they'd worked for.
But the worst visit, the one that still gives me nightmares, was on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was alone in the house. Arthur had gone to the doctor for a routine checkup, and Michael let himself in with his old key. I didn't even know he still had a key. He sat down in Arthur's chair, the leather recliner in the living room, and he looked at me with these cold, empty eyes. And he said, "Mom, I need you to understand something. Dad isn't going to be around forever. His heart is weak. And when he's gone, you're going to need someone to take care of you. Someone to handle the finances, the properties, the decisions. You're not capable of doing it yourself." He said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, like he was telling me the weather forecast.
When Eleanor told me about that conversation, I saw red. Literally saw red, like something exploded behind my eyes. This punk, this ungrateful, spoiled punk, had come into my house, sat in my chair, and told my wife she was too stupid to manage her own affairs. I wanted to drive over to his place right then and there and teach him a lesson his expensive private schools never did. But Eleanor stopped me. She grabbed my arm, looked me straight in the eye, and said something I'll never forget. She said, "Arthur, if we fight him with anger, we'll lose. But if we fight him with intelligence, we'll win. And I want to win." That's when everything changed. That's when we stopped being victims and started being strategists.
I spent the next week doing research. Real research, not just Googling things, but calling lawyers, talking to financial advisors we actually trusted, reading books about estate planning and asset protection. And what I learned terrified me. If Arthur died suddenly and we hadn't taken proper precautions, Michael could challenge the will, tie up the estate in probate for years, and potentially even force me to sell properties just to pay legal fees. I'd be a widow fighting my own son in court while trying to survive on whatever scraps remained. We'd spent 40 years building security, and our son could destroy it in 40 days.
So we made a plan. A real plan, not some half-baked idea, but a comprehensive strategy that would protect us and teach Michael a lesson he desperately needed to learn. First, we met with a lawyer, a real one, not one of the sharks Michael kept bringing around. Her name was Patricia Gonzalez. She was about 50, tough as nails, and she'd handled dozens of cases involving family disputes. We laid out everything: Michael's demands, his threats, his pattern of manipulation. Patricia listened, took notes, and then said, "I see this more often than you think. Adult children who see their parents as ATMs and real estate portfolios. Here's what we're going to do."
Patricia's plan was brilliant, Arthur, absolutely brilliant. First, we'd transfer all the properties into a family trust with me and Arthur as co-trustees. The trust documents specified that upon our deaths, the properties would be sold and the proceeds donated to charity, specifically to organizations that support elder abuse prevention. Michael would get exactly $1. One single dollar. But here's the genius part: we didn't tell Michael about the trust. We let him keep thinking he was going to inherit everything. We let him keep showing up with his folders and his schemes and his manipulation. Because we needed him to reveal his true character, completely and undeniably.
The second part of the plan involved documentation. Every time Michael visited, I started keeping detailed notes. Date, time, what was said, who was present. I installed a small camera in the living room, one of those nanny cams disguised as a clock. Legal in our state, as long as it was in our own home. And boy, did Michael perform for that camera. He didn't know it, but he was creating a record of his own greed, his own manipulation, his own emotional abuse. Every threat, every insult, every attempt to coerce us, all captured in high-definition video with perfect audio. Patricia said it was some of the best evidence she'd ever seen in an elder abuse case.
But the hardest part of the plan, the part that broke my heart every single day, was pretending. We had to pretend to be weak, to be confused, to be malleable. When Michael would visit and present his latest scheme, we'd ask questions like, "Oh, honey, I don't understand all these big words," or "Are you sure this is the right thing to do?" We had to act like the doddering old fools he believed we were. And it killed me, Arthur, it absolutely killed me. Because every time I played dumb, every time I acted helpless, I saw the satisfaction in his eyes. He thought he was winning. He thought he was outsmarting his stupid old parents.
The breaking point came on Christmas Eve, exactly 2 years after this whole nightmare started. Michael and Vanessa invited us to their place for dinner, which was unusual because they usually avoided us like the plague. But we accepted because we were still hoping, stupidly hoping, that maybe Christmas would bring out some shred of decency in them. We drove to their house, a gaudy McMansion in a gated community, carrying presents we'd spent weeks picking out. For Michael, a first edition book he'd mentioned wanting years ago. For Vanessa, an expensive scarf from that French store she always bragged about shopping at. We rang the doorbell like guests in what used to be our son's home.
The door opened, and Vanessa was standing there in a sparkly cocktail dress, champagne glass in hand, looking at us like we were door-to-door salesmen. She didn't say Merry Christmas or come in or anything remotely welcoming. She just looked over her shoulder and yelled, "Michael, your parents are here." Like we were an inconvenience, like we were something she'd ordered that had arrived at the wrong time. We walked into the foyer, and I could hear music and laughter coming from the living room. They were having a party. A Christmas party. And they hadn't invited us.
Michael came out of the living room, and I could tell immediately he'd been drinking. His face was flushed, his tie was loose, and he had that aggressive energy drunks get when they're looking for a fight. He looked at the presents in our hands and actually laughed. Not a friendly laugh, a mean one, the kind bullies use. He said, "What's this? You brought gifts? How adorable." Then he turned to the living room and shouted, "Hey everyone, come see this. The charity case has brought presents." And people came out, 8 or 9 people I'd never met, all dressed up, all holding drinks, all staring at us like we were entertainment.
I wanted to run, Arthur. I wanted to turn around and run out that door and never look back. But my legs wouldn't move. I just stood there, holding that stupid expensive scarf, feeling every eye in that room judging us. One of the women, a blonde in a red dress, whispered something to the man next to her, and they both giggled. Vanessa took a sip of her champagne and said, "Michael, should we tell them now? Or should we wait until after dessert?" And Michael smiled, this horrible, cruel smile, and said, "Let's tell them now."
He pulled a document out of his pocket, unfolded it dramatically like he was revealing a winning lottery ticket, and held it up for everyone to see. It was an eviction notice. A formal, legal eviction notice. For our house. Our 7-bedroom mansion that we'd owned for 43 years. Michael said, "Mom, Dad, I want to let you know that I've purchased your house. Well, technically, the bank purchased it when you defaulted on the mortgage you didn't know you had. See, I've been helping manage your finances, and I may have taken out a small loan against the property. And when you couldn't make the payments, because you're old and confused and can't handle money, the bank foreclosed. And I bought it at auction last week. So you have 30 days to vacate. Merry Christmas."
The room erupted in laughter. All those strangers, all those people who didn't know us, who didn't know our story, laughing at two old people being made homeless on Christmas Eve. Vanessa raised her champagne glass and said, "To new beginnings." And they all drank, all of them, while Michael stood there grinning like he'd just won the Super Bowl. But here's what Michael didn't know. Here's what he couldn't have known because he was too arrogant, too stupid, too blinded by his own greed. That mortgage he took out? It was fraud. He'd forged our signatures. And we had proof.
I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, and did something Michael's generation thinks only they can do. I recorded him. I held up my phone and said, "Michael, could you repeat that part about forging our signatures on the mortgage documents? I want to make sure I have it clear for the police." The room went silent. Dead silent. You could hear ice melting in glasses. Michael's face went from flushed to pale in about 3 seconds. He stammered, "I didn't say. I never said forged. Dad, what are you talking about?" But it was too late. He'd confessed to a room full of witnesses, and I had it on video.
Vanessa tried to salvage the situation, bless her greedy little heart. She laughed, that same glass-breaking cackle, and said, "Everyone, I think there's been a misunderstanding." Michael was joking. You know how he is, always playing pranks on his parents. But the other guests weren't laughing anymore. They were looking at Michael with disgust, with horror, with the kind of revulsion you reserve for people who kick puppies or steal from charity boxes. One couple, an older pair in their 60s, set down their drinks and walked straight out the door without saying a word. Another woman said, "Michael, this is sick. I'm leaving." Within 5 minutes, that party was empty.
Michael tried to grab my phone, actually lunged at me like a common thug, but I'm old, not dead. I stepped back and Eleanor stepped between us. My wife, 72 years old with arthritis in her knees, stood between me and our 6-foot son and said, "Touch him, and I'll have you arrested for assault on top of everything else." Michael froze. Vanessa was crying, mascara running down her face, babbling about how this was all a misunderstanding, how we were twisting everything. But we weren't twisting anything. We were just finally, standing up for ourselves.
We left that house with our dignity intact and our presence still in hand. We drove to a hotel, a nice one, and checked into a suite. And that night, Christmas Eve, we sat on the balcony watching the city lights and drinking hot chocolate, and Arthur said something profound. He said, "Eleanor, for 40 years we've been trying to buy our son's love. But love isn't for sale. And the sooner we accept that, the sooner we can actually live." We held hands, and for the first time in years, I felt light, free. Like something heavy had been lifted off my chest.
The next morning, Christmas Day, we called Patricia Gonzalez. She answered on the second ring, even though it was a holiday, because she's a professional and because she'd been expecting our call. We told her everything that had happened at Michael's house. She listened, asked a few questions, and then said, "I'll have the police at his door by noon. Mortgage fraud is a felony, and with this confession on video, this is going to be a very short case." And she was right. By 2 p.m. on Christmas Day, 2 detectives were interviewing Michael and Vanessa. By December 27th, Michael was under arrest.
You might think we celebrated when Michael got arrested, but we didn't. We sat in our hotel room and cried. We cried for the son we'd lost years ago, for the little boy who used to bring me dandelions, for the teenager who used to help Arthur fix the car on weekends. That person was gone, replaced by this criminal who saw his own parents as obstacles to overcome. And no matter how much he'd hurt us, no matter how much he deserved what was coming, he was still our child. That pain doesn't just disappear because justice is served.
But here's what we didn't cry about: the house. While Michael was being booked and fingerprinted, Patricia was filing emergency motions to freeze all assets related to the fraudulent mortgage. Turns out, Michael's brilliant plan had more holes than Swiss cheese. The bank that supposedly foreclosed? They'd been duped too. Michael had forged documents claiming he had power of attorney over our finances. He created fake medical reports saying we were mentally incapacitated. He'd built an entire house of cards, and when Patricia started pulling threads, the whole thing collapsed in 72 hours.
By New Year's Eve, 1 week after the Christmas party disaster, we had our house back. Not that we wanted it anymore. That mansion held too many bad memories, too many years of walking on eggshells, too many fake smiles and forced family dinners. Patricia helped us put it on the market, and we sold it within a month to a lovely young family with 3 kids and a golden retriever. We made $4.3 million. After taxes and legal fees, we cleared about $3 million. And we used some of that money to buy what we'd always actually wanted, a small, cozy house with a real garden and a porch swing.
Michael's trial was quick. With the video confession, the forged documents, and testimony from the bank officers he deceived, his lawyer advised him to take a plea deal. 3 years in federal prison for fraud, restitution to the bank, and a permanent criminal record. Vanessa filed for divorce before the ink on the plea deal was dry. Turns out her love was even more conditional than Michael's. She married some hedge fund manager 6 months later and moved to Connecticut. We heard she tells people she's widowed rather than admit she was married to a convicted felon.
The hardest question people ask us is whether we've forgiven Michael. And the truth is complicated. Have we forgiven him for trying to steal our life savings? Maybe. Have we forgiven him for the years of emotional abuse and manipulation? We're working on it. But have we forgotten? Never. Forgiveness doesn't mean amnesia. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means accepting that it did happen, learning from it, and choosing not to let it poison the rest of our lives. We visit Michael in prison once a year, on his birthday. Not because he asks us to, but because we want to look ourselves in the mirror and know we tried.
During one of those prison visits, about 18 months into his sentence, Michael actually apologized. Not the fake apology manipulators give when they want something, but a real one. He looked at us through that plexiglass divider, and his eyes were different. Clearer somehow. He said, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you ever again. But I need you to know that I understand what I did. I spent 40 years taking from you, and I convinced myself I deserved it. I convinced myself you owed me everything because you were my parents. And I was wrong. I was so wrong." Eleanor cried during that visit. I didn't. I just nodded and said, "We know, son. We know."
That apology didn't change what happened, and it didn't erase the pain, but it gave us something we didn't know we needed: closure. We left that prison knowing that maybe, somewhere deep down, our real son was still in there. Maybe prison would give him the wake-up call that 40 years of comfortable living never could. Maybe he'd come out a better person. Or maybe he wouldn't. But either way, his journey was his own now. We'd done our job raising him. What he did with that foundation, or the rubble of it, was up to him.
The property business we built? We kept it running for another year, but our hearts weren't in it anymore. We'd spent 4 decades buying houses, fixing them up, renting them out, and for what? So our son could try to steal it all? It felt tainted somehow. So we sold the properties, all 17 of them, to a young couple who reminded us of ourselves 40 years ago. Hard workers, eager, honest. We gave them a fair price, nothing charitable, but fair. And we took our money and did something we'd never done before. We started actually living.
We traveled, Arthur. Oh my God, we traveled. We went to Italy and stood in the Sistine Chapel with our necks craned back, staring at Michelangelo's masterpiece. We went to Japan during cherry blossom season and walked through gardens that looked like paintings. We went to New Zealand and rode in a helicopter over mountains that took my breath away. We spent money on experiences instead of hoarding it for children who didn't appreciate it. And you know what? It felt good. It felt really, really good.
We also started this channel, Golden Age Chronicles. We figured if we went through this nightmare, probably thousands of other older folks were going through similar things. Adult children trying to manipulate them, steal from them, abuse them. So we started telling our story, and then other people's stories, and the response was overwhelming. We got letters, emails, messages from people all over the country saying, "Thank you for speaking up. I thought I was the only one. And that's when we realized our pain had a purpose. Our trauma could help others avoid the same fate.
One of the most common questions we get is, what were the warning signs you missed? And oh, there were so many. The first warning sign was when Michael stopped asking about our lives and only talked about his own achievements. The second was when he started measuring everything in money, how much our house was worth, how much our car cost, how much our retirement savings totaled. The third was when he stopped bringing his wife around for family events and started bringing lawyers and financial advisors instead. But the biggest warning sign, the one we ignored for years, was how he made us feel. After every interaction with Michael, we felt smaller, stupider, less valuable. And when someone consistently makes you feel that way, believe them. They're showing you who they are.
You know what really gets me? Michael grew up with everything. Everything. We sent him to private schools where tuition cost more than some people's annual salary. We paid for his college, his graduate degree, his first car, his wedding. We gave him a trust fund when he turned 25, about $200,000 to get started in life. And he blew through that money in 3 years on a luxury apartment and a sports car. When I asked him about it, he said, "Dad, you don't understand how expensive it is to maintain a certain lifestyle." Maintain a lifestyle? I was eating government cheese in college while working 2 jobs, and this punk was complaining about lifestyle maintenance.
But I also have to take responsibility for my part in creating Michael's entitlement. When he was 8 years old, he lost a soccer game and came home crying. Instead of teaching him that losing is part of life, I marched down to that school and demanded the coach put him on the starting lineup. When he was 16 and didn't get accepted to his first-choice college, I called the admissions office and made a scene until they reconsidered his application. I smoothed every road, removed every obstacle, fought every battle for him. And in doing so, I taught him that rules don't apply to him, that consequences are for other people, that mommy will always fix everything. I created a monster, and then I acted surprised when he turned on me.
Here's something most people don't understand about family trauma. It's not one big explosion. It's 1,000 tiny cuts over decades. It's the birthday call that never comes. It's the grandchildren you're not allowed to see. It's the passive-aggressive comments disguised as concern. It's the family photos you're cropped out of. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, and by the time you realize you're bleeding out, you've lost so much blood you can barely stand. That's what Michael did to us. He eroded our dignity so gradually that we didn't notice until we were standing in his foyer on Christmas Eve, being laughed at by strangers.
After the trial, after the divorce, after all the legal dust settled, we did something that surprised even Patricia. We set up a college fund for Michael's 2 kids, our grandchildren, who were 10 and 12 at the time. Not a huge amount, just enough to pay for state college if they chose to go. Patricia thought we were crazy. She said, "Eleanor, after what Michael did, you don't owe those kids anything." But we didn't do it because we owed them. We did it because they're innocent. They didn't ask for their father to be a criminal or their mother to be a social climber. And maybe, just maybe, having their education paid for will teach them a lesson their parents never learned. Generosity doesn't come from obligation. It comes from choice.
Those grandkids, Sophia and Daniel, we barely knew them. Michael had kept them away from us for years, always with some excuse. They have soccer practice. They're doing homework. Vanessa's parents are visiting. But after the trial, after Vanessa left and Michael went to prison, the kids' court-appointed guardian reached out to us, asked if we wanted to be part of their lives. And you know what Eleanor said? She said, "Only if they want to be part of ours." Because we'd learned our lesson. We weren't going to force relationships anymore. We weren't going to beg for scraps of affection. Either people wanted us in their lives, fully and genuinely, or they didn't. There was no middle ground anymore.
Sophia, the older one, she reached out first. She was 14 by then, old enough to understand what had happened, old enough to feel angry and betrayed. She sent us a letter, an actual handwritten letter, that said, "Dear Grandma and Grandpa, I'm sorry for what my dad did. I don't understand why he did it, but I want you to know that I don't think you're stupid or weak like he said you were. I think you're brave. Can I come visit you? I must have read that letter 50 times, Arthur, crying every single time. We framed it. It's hanging in our living room right now.
We met Sophia at a coffee shop near her school. She was tall, looked more like Eleanor than Michael, thank God. She was nervous, kept fidgeting with her napkin, but she looked us in the eye when she talked. That meant something. She asked us questions, real questions. What was my dad like when he was my age? Did you always know he'd turn out like this? Do you think people can change? We answered honestly, didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't trash talk Michael either. We just told the truth. And by the end of that 2-hour coffee, Sophia hugged us tight and whispered, I missed you. I didn't even know I missed you, but I did.
Now Sophia visits us twice a month. She's 17, applying to colleges, and she asks us for advice. Not about money, about life. She wants to know how we built our business, how we stayed married for 47 years, how we survived what Michael did to us. And we tell her. We tell her everything. We tell her that marriage is work, that business requires integrity, that survival requires resilience. We tell her things her parents never taught her because they were too busy teaching her to chase status and money. And you know what's beautiful? She listens. She actually listens.
Daniel, the younger one, he took longer to come around. Boys that age are complicated, especially when their father's in prison and their mother's off playing house with a new rich husband. But about a year ago, he showed up at our door with his foster father, a good man named Robert. Daniel didn't say much, just asked if he could see our garden. So I took him out back, showed him the tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers we'd planted. And he said, Dad always told me gardening was for poor people. And I said, Your dad was wrong about a lot of things. We spent 3 hours in that garden, barely talking, just working. Sometimes communication isn't verbal.
Daniel comes by every Saturday now to help Arthur with the garden. They don't talk much, those two, they're both the strong silent type. But I watch them from the kitchen window, and I see something beautiful. I see a boy learning that value isn't measured in dollars. I see a grandfather teaching patience and care. I see healing happening in real time, one tomato plant at a time. And sometimes Daniel will ask Arthur a question, Grandpa, why didn't you fight back harder against Dad? And Arthur will pause, think, and give an honest answer. Because fighting wasn't the point, Daniel. Surviving was. We had to outlast his cruelty to get to this moment, right here, with you.
People ask us if we regret how we handled the situation with Michael. The short answer is no. The long answer is complicated. Could we have confronted him earlier? Sure. Could we have cut him off financially years before? Absolutely. Could we have been tougher, less accommodating, more willing to set boundaries? Yes, yes, and yes. But here's the thing. We were operating with the information and emotional capacity we had at the time. We were scared, wounded parents trying to hold onto our only child. We made mistakes. But those mistakes don't negate the fact that Michael made choices. Adult choices. Criminal choices. We didn't make him forge documents. We didn't make him commit fraud. He did that all by himself.
The civil lawsuit was almost as exhausting as the criminal trial. Even from prison, Michael tried to sue us for emotional distress and defamation. Can you imagine? He claimed that our testimony at his criminal trial had damaged his reputation. His lawyer was one of those sleazy types who advertise on bus benches, the kind who'll take any case if there's money involved. But Patricia demolished them in court. She brought in the videos, the forged documents, the testimony from the bank officers. The judge was so disgusted he threatened to hold Michael's lawyer in contempt for filing a frivolous lawsuit. Michael lost and was ordered to pay our legal fees. Another $30,000 he'll never pay back.
You want to hear something funny? After Michael went to prison, we started getting calls from other family members we hadn't heard from in years. My brother Frank, who hadn't spoken to me since 2005 because I couldn't loan him money for his business venture, suddenly wanted to reconnect. Eleanor's sister Patricia, not the lawyer, different Patricia, who'd chosen Vanessa's side during the trial, called to apologize. Everyone wanted to be supportive now that the drama was over and there was no social cost to being associated with us. We politely declined most of those relationships. Trauma has a way of showing you who your real family is, and spoiler alert, it's not always the people you share DNA with.
Our real family turned out to be our neighbors, Bob and Linda Martinez. They're about our age, retired teachers, and they brought us casseroles during the trial when we were too exhausted to cook. They sat with us in court when we had to testify. They helped us pack up and move out of that mansion when we sold it. They never asked invasive questions, never gossiped, never treated us like we were charity cases. They just showed up. And when we bought our new house, guess who lives 3 doors down? Bob and Linda. We have dinner together every Friday night. That's family.
The financial recovery took about 2 years. Between legal fees, court costs, and the emotional toll that made it hard to work, we burned through about $200,000. But we still had our property income, we still had our savings, and we still had each other. Some people lose everything in situations like ours. We were lucky, if you can call surviving your son's betrayal lucky. Patricia helped us restructure our finances, set up better protections, create a real estate plan that couldn't be challenged or manipulated. She even convinced us to write a book about our experience. We're still working on that. Turns out writing a book is harder than living through the experience.
The book is difficult because we have to relive everything in detail. Every betrayal, every insult, every moment of doubt and fear. Our publisher wants us to include Michael's childhood, to try to pinpoint where things went wrong. But how do you pinpoint the exact moment your child stopped being your child? Was it the first time he rolled his eyes at my advice? The first time he chose Vanessa's opinion over ours? The first time he looked at us and saw dollar signs instead of parents? Or was it something we did? Some failure in our parenting that created this monster? Those questions keep me up at night.
But then I remember something my father told me before he died. He said, "Arthur, you can give your kids roots and wings, but you can't control where they fly or how they land. All you can do is teach them right from wrong and hope they remember it when it matters." We taught Michael right from wrong. We taught him integrity, honesty, respect. And he chose to forget all of it. That's not our failure. That's his. I have to believe that, Eleanor, or I'll go crazy. I have to believe that we did our best and Michael chose his path. Otherwise, what was the point of any of it?
One thing this experience taught us is that money is both blessing and curse. We worked so hard to build wealth, thinking it would give Michael security and opportunity. Instead, it gave him entitlement and greed. If we'd been poor, would he have turned out differently? Maybe. Or maybe he'd have resented us for being poor. There's no way to know. But what I do know is this: the measure of a person isn't what they have, it's what they do with what they have. Michael had every advantage, every opportunity, and he chose to use those gifts to hurt the people who gave them to him. That's a character flaw, not a financial issue.
The weirdest part of going through something like this is how it changes your perspective on everything. Little things that used to bother me, traffic jams, long lines at the grocery store, bad weather, they don't bother me anymore. Because I've survived real pain. I've been betrayed by my own son and lived to tell the story. Everything else is just noise. Eleanor jokes that I've become a Buddhist monk, all zen and peaceful. But it's not Buddhism. It's just clarity. When you've been to hell and back, you stop sweating the small stuff.
We also discovered that trauma can be a teacher if you let it be. It taught us to trust our instincts. Looking back, I had felt uneasy about Michael's behavior for years, but I ignored those feelings because I didn't want to believe my son was capable of what I suspected. Now I trust myself. When something feels wrong, I pay attention. When someone's actions don't match their words, I believe the actions. When people show me who they are, I believe them the first time. These might sound like simple lessons, But they're revolutionary when you've spent decades making excuses for bad behavior.
We also learned about the legal system the hard way. Did you know that elder financial abuse is one of the fastest growing crimes in America? Millions of older people are being scammed, manipulated, and robbed by their own family members every single year. And most of them never report it because they're ashamed or scared or they don't want to. Destroy the family. That shame almost destroyed us. We almost didn't go to the police because we didn't want people to know our son was a criminal. But Patricia told us something that changed our minds. She said, "By staying silent, you're not protecting Michael. You're protecting his ability to hurt you more."
So we started speaking up, not just about our case but about the broader issue. We give talks at senior centers, churches, community groups. We tell our story and we teach people the warning signs: adult children who are overly interested in finances, who want power of attorney just in case, who isolate their parents from friends and other family, who make their parents feel stupid or incompetent. We teach them about protecting assets, creating trusts, working with elder law attorneys. And we tell them the most important thing: asking for help is not weakness. It's survival.
The response to our talks has been overwhelming. After one presentation at a senior center in Phoenix, a woman in her 80s approached us crying. She said her son had been pressuring her to sign over her house, and she'd been planning to do it that week because she thought she had no choice. Our talk gave her the courage to call a lawyer instead. She protected herself because we shared our story. That right there, that moment, made every second of pain worth it. If our nightmare can prevent even one other family from going through the same thing, then it had meaning.
We've also started a small nonprofit, the Elder Defense Fund, that provides free legal consultations to older adults who suspect they're being financially abused by family members. We partnered with Patricia's law firm and several other elder law attorneys who donate their time. In the first year, we helped 43 families, recovered over $2 million in stolen assets, and helped prosecute 11 cases of elder abuse. It's not enough, it'll never be enough, but it's something. It's us turning our pain into purpose.
Michael gets out of prison in 8 months. He served 2 years and 4 months of his 3-year sentence, got early release for good behavior. We've been talking about what that means for us, whether we'll see him, what our boundaries will be. Patricia advises us to have no contact for at least a year after his release, to let him rebuild his life without using us as a crutch or a target. But Eleanor thinks we should at least talk to him, see if prison really changed him, or if it just made him better at hiding who he is. I'm torn. Part of me wants to believe in redemption. Part of me knows better.
The truth is, I'm scared of seeing Michael again. Not physically scared, he's never been violent. But emotionally scared. Scared that he'll manipulate us again. Scared that he'll say the right things and I'll believe him because I want to believe him. Scared that I'll fall back into old patterns of making excuses and accepting unacceptable behavior. Arthur keeps telling me that I'm stronger now, that we're both stronger, that we know the warning signs. But trauma has a way of making you doubt everything, including your own strength.
What we've decided is this: if Michael reaches out after his release, we'll respond. But we won't initiate contact. We won't chase him. We won't beg for a relationship. And we'll have clear boundaries. No discussions about money. No asking for favors. No manipulation tactics. If he wants a real relationship, a genuine one based on mutual respect and honesty, we're open to that. But if he wants access to our assets or our guilt or our fear, the answer is no. Forever no. We've drawn a line in the sand, and this time we'll defend it.
People ask us all the time, do you still love Michael? And the answer is yes. Of course we do. You don't stop loving your child just because they hurt you. But love doesn't mean trust. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being for someone who wouldn't do the same for you. We love Michael, but we love ourselves more now. And that's not selfish. That's survival. That's sanity. That's the lesson it took us 70 years to learn.
The greatest gift Michael gave us, though he didn't intend it, was forcing us to value ourselves. For 40 years, we derived our worth from being good parents. And when Michael rejected us, when he made it clear we had no value to him beyond our money, We had to figure out who we were without that identity. We had to discover Arthur and Eleanor, not just Michael's parents. And you know what? We're pretty interesting people. We're funny, we're resilient, we're adventurous. We're not just support systems for an ungrateful son. We're human beings with our own dreams and goals and value.
That's why we travel now, why we started this YouTube channel, why we give talks and run our nonprofit. Because we've finally realized that our lives matter. Not because of what we can provide for others, but because we exist. Our experiences, our wisdom, our stories, they have value independent of Michael or anyone else. And sharing those stories, connecting with people, helping others avoid our mistakes, that gives our lives purpose. We're not just surviving anymore. We're thriving. At 73 and 75 years old, we're finally thriving.
Last month, Sophia graduated high school. Top of her class, full scholarship to Stanford. And she asked us to be there. Not just invited us, but asked us specifically to sit in the front row. She introduced us to her teachers, her friends, as my grandparents who taught me what strength really looks like. We cried, both of us, sitting in that auditorium watching her accept awards and scholarships. And I thought about Michael, sitting in a prison cell, missing this moment because of choices he made. And I felt sad for him. Not sorry, not guilty, just sad that he chose greed over this kind of joy.
Sophia's valedictorian speech was about resilience. She talked about her family falling apart, about learning that parents aren't perfect, about how her grandparents showed her that dignity isn't about never falling down, it's about how you get back up. She didn't mention Michael by name, but everyone knew. And when she finished, the entire auditorium stood up and applauded for 3 minutes straight. 3 minutes. Arthur squeezed my hand so hard I thought he'd break my fingers. And I whispered, "We did good." Maybe not with Michael, but with her, we did good.
Daniel graduates next year. He's planning to study agriculture, wants to work in sustainable farming. He credits those Saturday mornings in our garden with showing him there's more to life than chasing money. He says watching things grow taught him patience and perspective. His foster father, Robert, told us that Daniel was an angry, withdrawn kid when he first got placed with them, but working with me in the garden helped him open up. I don't take credit for that. I just showed up consistently, which is apparently more than Daniel's father ever did.
Both kids know about the college funds we set up. We told them last year because we wanted them to know they had options, that education was possible regardless of their parents' failures. Sophia cried when we told her. Daniel just nodded and said, "Thank you," but later Robert told us Daniel had said it was the first time in his life he felt like someone believed in him. That broke my heart and healed it simultaneously. These kids deserved so much better than what they got from Michael and Vanessa. We can't undo their childhoods, but maybe we can help shape their futures.
The question of legacy weighs on me more these days. I'm 75, Eleanor's 73, and we're healthy now, but who knows how long that'll last. When we die, what will we leave behind? Not money, though there'll be some of that for Sophia and Daniel. But what else? I want to leave behind the message that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. That age doesn't equal weakness. That betrayal doesn't have to define you. That love without boundaries is just enabling. These are the lessons we learned the hardest way possible, and they're the legacy I want to leave.
Arthur talks about legacy, and I think about it differently. My legacy isn't what I leave behind, it's what I do right now, today. Every person we help through our nonprofit, every talk we give, every time we share our story and someone says, "You gave me the courage to protect myself," that's legacy. Legacy isn't posthumous. It's active. It's choosing every day to turn pain into purpose, trauma into teaching, betrayal into empowerment. That's what I want people to remember about us, not that we were victims who survived, but that we were survivors who helped others.
We keep getting messages from people who watch our videos or attend our talks, asking, "How do you not hate Michael?" And the honest answer is, sometimes we do. Hate is a strong word, but anger? Resentment? Bitterness? Yeah, those feelings show up. Usually at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep and my brain decides to replay every awful moment. But we've learned that those feelings are like poison. You can swallow them and let them destroy you from the inside, or you can spit them out and choose something else. We choose something else most days. Not all days, but most days.
The anniversary of that Christmas Eve still hits us hard. Every December 24th, no matter how good our lives are now, we remember standing in that foyer being laughed at. We remember the champagne toasts to our misery. We remember the look in Michael's eyes, triumphant and cruel. Arthur wants to pretend it doesn't bother him, but I hear him in the kitchen at midnight, making tea because he can't sleep. And I don't push him to talk about it. Some pain is too big for words. Sometimes you just have to sit with it until it passes.
What really gets me is the wasted time. We spent so many years walking on eggshells, trying to please Michael, accepting unacceptable behavior. Years we could have spent traveling, helping others, building genuine relationships. Instead, we were trapped in this toxic cycle of hope and disappointment. Hope that this visit would be different. Hope that this birthday call would come. Hope that Michael would wake up and realize what he was throwing away. All that hope, all that energy, completely wasted on someone who saw us as obstacles, not family.
But you know what? We're not wasting any more time.
Last year, we went skydiving.
Yes, skydiving. At 72 and 74 years old, we jumped out of a perfectly good airplane strapped to instructors, and it was terrifying and exhilarating and absolutely ridiculous. We have the video and sometimes we watch it when we're feeling old or limited or afraid. Because if we can jump out of a plane, we can do anything. If we can survive Michael's betrayal, we can survive anything. That video is our reminder, we're alive, we're strong, and we're not done yet.
Next month, we're going to Ireland. Eleanor's grandmother was Irish, immigrated in the 1920s, and Eleanor's always wanted to see the village where her family came from. We're renting a car, driving through the countryside, staying in bed and breakfasts, eating too much and walking it off in green fields. No schedule, no stress, just exploration. This is what retirement was supposed to look like before Michael turned it into a legal battle. Better late than never, right? We're reclaiming our joy, one adventure at a time.
People sometimes tell us we're inspirational, and honestly, that makes me uncomfortable. We didn't do anything special. We just refused to be victims forever. We stood up, got help, protected ourselves, and rebuilt our lives. That's not heroic, that's just survival. The real heroes are people like Patricia, our lawyer, who fights these battles every day for clients who can't afford big legal fees. The real heroes are people like Bob and Linda, our neighbors, who show up consistently for people they barely know. We're just two old people who got pushed too far and finally pushed back.
But if being called inspirational means other people feel empowered to protect themselves, then fine. Call us whatever you want. Just learn from our mistakes. Don't wait 40 years to set boundaries. Don't ignore red flags because you're afraid of conflict. Don't let anyone, family or otherwise, make you feel worthless. And if you're being abused, financially or emotionally or physically, get help. Talk to a lawyer, call the police, reach out to organizations that specialize in elder abuse. You don't have to suffer alone. You don't have to accept mistreatment because someone shares your DNA.
One of the hardest things we had to accept is that we can't save Michael. For years, we thought if we just loved him enough, supported him enough, gave him enough, he'd change. But you can't love someone into being a good person. They have to choose it themselves. And Michael chose greed over integrity, chose Vanessa over family, chose manipulation over honesty. Those were his choices, made by an adult with full awareness of the consequences. We didn't make those choices for him, and we can't unmake them for him. All we can do is protect ourselves and hope he finds his way eventually.
The property management company we sold to that young couple? They're thriving. They've expanded to 32 properties now, kept all our old tenants, treat people fairly. Sometimes they call us for advice, which I find amusing because they're doing way better than we ever did. But I guess that's how it should work. The next generation takes what we built and improves it. That's progress. That's how the world moves forward. And knowing that our business is in good hands, helping people who deserve it, that brings me peace.
We've also become sort of accidental advocates for elder rights. We testified before our state legislature about strengthening laws against elder financial abuse. We've been interviewed by newspapers, podcasts, even a documentary crew is following us for a film about family betrayal. It's weird being 73 and suddenly having a public platform, but we're using it. We're using it to change laws, raise awareness, and help people. If nothing else good comes from what Michael did, at least this came from it.
The documentary crew asked us what advice we give to our younger selves, knowing what we know now. And I thought about it for a long time before answering. I said, I'd tell myself that being a good parent doesn't mean being a doormat. I'd tell myself that love requires boundaries. I'd tell myself that it's okay to disappoint your kids sometimes because disappointment builds character. And I'd tell myself to trust my instincts, especially when those instincts are screaming that something's wrong. Eleanor added, I'd tell myself that my worth isn't tied to being needed, that being loved should feel good, not exhausting.
We've learned so much about the psychology of family abuse in the past few years. We've read books, talked to therapists, attended support groups. And one thing that keeps coming up is this: abusers often target people's kindness and turn it into weakness. Michael knew we were generous, loving parents. He knew we'd do anything for him. And he weaponized that. He took our best qualities and used them against us. That's not our failure. That's his. Understanding that distinction was crucial to our healing.
Healing isn't linear, by the way. Some days we're fine, strong, ready to take on the world. Other days, one of us will find an old photo of Michael as a kid, or a birthday card he made in elementary school, and we'll just collapse. We'll cry, we'll rage, we'll mourn the child who became a stranger. And that's okay. Grief doesn't have an expiration date. Loss doesn't heal on a schedule. We give ourselves permission to feel everything, the good days and the terrible days, without judgment.
But the good days are starting to outnumber the bad days, and that's progress. Last week, we laughed until we cried watching a stupid comedy movie. 2 months ago, we went dancing at a senior center social, and Arthur twirled me around the floor like we were 20 again. 6 months ago, we hiked 3 miles in a state park and didn't think about Michael once. These moments, these glimpses of pure joy untainted by trauma, they're becoming more frequent. We're remembering how to be happy.
The financial situation is stable now. We have enough money to live comfortably, travel occasionally, and help Sophia and Daniel when needed. We're not rich, but we're secure, and that's more important. We learned the hard way that wealth without peace is worthless. We'd rather have a small house and sleep well at night than a mansion filled with anxiety. Material things don't matter nearly as much as we thought they did when we were younger. What matters is waking up next to someone who genuinely loves you, having people in your life who value you, and knowing you can look yourself in the mirror with dignity.
We've also discovered hobbies we never had time for before. Arthur took up woodworking and he's gotten really good at it. He made Sophia a beautiful jewelry box for her graduation, cherry wood with her initials carved into the lid. He made Daniel a birdhouse that's now in his foster family's backyard, always full of sparrows and finches. Creating something with your hands, something tangible and useful and beautiful, it's therapeutic. Arthur says sanding wood is better than therapy. I disagree, therapy is also important, but I understand what he means.
I'm building a rocking chair next. A real one, not from a kit, from lumber I'm selecting and cutting myself. It'll probably take me 6 months, but that's fine. I'm not in a hurry. The joy is in the process, not just the finished product. Eleanor jokes that I'm going to fill our house with furniture until we can't walk through the rooms. She might be right. But every piece I make is proof that I'm still capable, still creative, still valuable. Michael tried to make us feel useless and outdated. This rocking chair is my middle finger to that narrative.
I've taken up painting. Watercolors mostly, landscapes and flowers. I'm not good, not by any professional standard, but that's not the point. The point is putting brush to paper and seeing color spread and knowing that I created something that didn't exist before. My art teacher, a lovely woman named Patricia, yes, another Patricia, says I have a good eye for composition. I don't know about that, but I know that painting makes me feel peaceful. And peace is something we've had to consciously rebuild after years of chaos.
We're also both in therapy. Individual therapy, not couples therapy, though we did that too for a while. We needed help processing the trauma, the betrayal, the complex emotions around Michael. Our therapist, Dr. Chun, has been incredible. She doesn't let us wallow in victimhood, but she also validates our pain. She's teaching us coping mechanisms for when the trauma resurfaces, and strategies for maintaining healthy boundaries. Therapy isn't weakness. It's maintenance. You change the oil in your car, you maintain your mental health. Same principle.
Dr. Chen asked us a question last month that we're still wrestling with. If Michael came to you tomorrow, completely changed, genuinely remorseful, and asked for a real relationship, what would you say? And we didn't have an answer. We still don't. Because we want to believe in redemption, we want to believe people can change, but we also know that trust, once shattered, is almost impossible to fully rebuild. Can you love someone and still protect yourself from them? Can you forgive someone and still maintain boundaries? These are questions we're not sure have answers.
I think the answer is yes. You can love someone from a distance. You can wish them well without letting them back into your inner circle. You can forgive without forgetting. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. It means accepting that it did happen, processing the pain, and choosing not to let that pain control your present. Michael will always be our son. But whether he's an active part of our lives depends entirely on whether he can demonstrate genuine change, not just say the right words, but actually live differently.
The conditions for reconciliation, if it ever happens, are non-negotiable. Michael would need to take full responsibility for his actions without excuses or blame shifting. He'd need to understand the depth of harm he caused. He'd need to respect our boundaries without testing them. He'd need to rebuild trust through consistent actions over years, not weeks or months. And honestly, I'm not sure he's capable of that level of emotional maturity. He spent his entire life believing the world owes him everything. Changing that mindset requires work most people aren't willing to do.
Patricia, our lawyer, is preparing documents for when we die. A real will, ironclad, with provisions that protect against challenges. Sophia and Daniel will split our estate equally. Michael gets nothing. Not out of spite, but out of recognition that giving him money would be enabling, not helping. The will explains this clearly. To our son Michael, we leave our love and our hope that he finds peace, but no financial assets, as we believe supporting his continued entitlement would dishonor everything we've learned and everything we've tried to teach him. Patricia says it's one of the most thoughtful exclusion clauses she's ever written.
But here's something unexpected. We've left a letter for Michael, to be opened only after we're both gone. In it, we tell him about the good memories, the real ones before everything went wrong. We tell him about the day he was born, how Arthur cried holding him for the first time. We tell him about his first steps, his first words, his kindergarten graduation where he sang so off-key that everyone laughed with joy. We tell him we loved him, we always loved him, even when he made it impossible to like him. And we tell him that we hope he finds whatever it is he's looking for, because money clearly wasn't it.
We've also made videos, dozens of them, stored with Patricia to be released after we're gone. Messages for Sophia and Daniel, advice about life and love and money and family. Recipes Eleanor wants to pass down. Stories about our parents, their grandparents they'll never meet. Lessons we've learned the hard way. We're creating a library of wisdom and love that'll outlive us. Because that's what elders are supposed to do, pass down knowledge. Michael rejected that knowledge, but Sophia and Daniel want it, treasure it. That means everything.
In one video, we talk about our love story. How we met at a county fair in 1977, how Arthur won me a stuffed elephant at the ring toss, how we talked until 2 a.m. about everything and nothing. How he proposed 6 months later in the middle of a rainstorm because he couldn't wait for perfect weather. How he fought and made up, struggled and survived, laughed and cried through 47 years of marriage. We want Sophia and Daniel to know that real love exists, that it's messy and difficult and absolutely worth it. Their parents' marriage was a disaster, but ours is proof that commitment and respect can last.
Eleanor cried making that video. Happy crying, she insisted, though I'm not entirely sure. We talked about our wedding, this tiny ceremony in her parents' backyard with maybe 30 people. We had $75 total for the reception, so Eleanor's mom made sandwiches, and her aunt baked a sheet cake from a box mix. No DJ, just someone's boom box playing cassette tapes. No photographer, just disposable cameras on the tables. It was simple and perfect and completely genuine. Unlike Michael's wedding, which cost $40,000 and felt like a corporate merger.
That contrast tells you everything, doesn't it? We built our marriage on a foundation of authenticity and partnership. Michael and Vanessa built theirs on status and appearance. And when real challenges came, when life got difficult, their marriage collapsed immediately. Ours bent but didn't break. Because we were never trying to impress anyone. We were just trying to build a life together, one day at a time. That's the lesson we're trying to pass to our grandchildren: substance over style, character over appearance, integrity over image.
We're also documenting our business history for Sophia and Daniel. Not because we expect them to go into real estate, but because we want them to understand the value of building something from nothing. We started with one rental property bought with a loan we almost couldn't qualify for. We fixed it up ourselves, learned plumbing and electrical from library books and trial and error. We rented it to a young family for $300 a month, barely enough to cover the mortgage. But we were patient. We were consistent. And over 40 years, one property became 17. That's not luck. That's discipline.
Michael never understood that. He thought success was supposed to be instant, delivered like a pizza. He had a business degree from an expensive university, but he never learned the fundamental lesson: wealth is built slowly through smart decisions and hard work. He wanted the shortcut, the inheritance, the instant portfolio. And when we wouldn't give it to him, he tried to take it. That tells you everything about the difference between earning and entitlement. We earned everything we have. Michael felt entitled to everything we earned. That's a canyon of difference.
You know what I fantasize about sometimes? Probably not healthy, but I'm being honest here. I fantasize about Michael getting out of prison, rebuilding his life the right way, and finally understanding what he threw away. I fantasize about him calling us, not to ask for anything, but to genuinely apologize. To say, "I get it now. I understand what you tried to teach me. I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to see it." And in this fantasy, we have coffee, we talk like adults, and we find some kind of peace. But then I remember that fantasies are just that. Reality is messy and rarely gives you the closure you want.
My fantasy is simpler. I just want Michael to be happy, genuinely happy, without needing to hurt people or accumulate things to feel valuable. I want him to discover that self-worth comes from within, not from bank accounts or social status. I want him to have a moment of clarity where he realizes that the love we offered him was real and precious and irreplaceable. But wanting those things for him doesn't mean we're responsible for making them happen. He has to do that work himself. We can't fix him. We never could. That was the hardest lesson to learn.
Dr. Chen says fantasies, like ours, are normal, even healthy, as long as we don't confuse them with reality or let them control our decisions. She says we're grieving the son we thought we had, the relationship we thought we'd have. And grief involves bargaining, imagining different outcomes, wishing things were different. But eventually, you have to accept reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Michael is who he is. We are who we are. And our relationship, or lack thereof, is what it is. Acceptance isn't defeat. It's clarity.
But enough about Michael. Let's talk about the good stuff. Last month, we celebrated our 47th anniversary.
Just the two of us, a nice dinner at an Italian restaurant, nothing fancy. But Arthur gave me a gift that made me cry. He'd taken that old Omega watch, the one Michael never wore, and had it converted into a pendant necklace for me. He said, "Michael rejected this gift, but I'm reclaiming it for someone who actually values what it represents: time, love, and commitment." I wear it every day now. It's my reminder that some things have value beyond money.
And I'm planning something big for our 50th anniversary. 3 years from now, if we're both healthy and able, I want to take Eleanor back to that county fair where we met. Apparently, it still happens every July, same location, same ring toss booth. I want to win her another stuffed elephant, even if my aim isn't what it used to be. I want to walk the same paths we walked 47 years ago and tell her that knowing her, loving her, building a life with her has been the greatest privilege of my existence. Sappy? Maybe. But we've earned the right to be sappy.
Arthur doesn't know this yet, but I'm planning something for that anniversary too. I've been working with a calligrapher to create a handwritten book of our story. Not the trauma with Michael, but the love story. Every significant moment from our first meeting to today. Our first kiss, our wedding, the births of our grandchildren, the trips we've taken, the challenges we've overcome together. Illustrated with photos and little drawings. It's going to be beautiful. And when he opens it at that county fair, I'm going to tell him that he's been my home for 47 years, and I'd choose him again in every lifetime.
The reality of aging is hitting us more these days. Eleanor's arthritis is getting worse, makes it hard for her to paint on bad days. My hearing isn't what it used to be. I miss things in conversations sometimes. We're slower, tire more easily, forget things occasionally. But you know what? We're still here. Still fighting, still loving, still growing. Age is just a number, and we're determined to make every year count. Michael tried to make us feel like we were already dead, obsolete, useless. Proving him wrong is its own kind of joy.
We've also started planning for the inevitable. Not morbidly, just practically. We've prepaid our funerals, simple cremations, nothing elaborate. We've organized all our important documents in a binder that Sophia knows how to access. We've had conversations with Dr. Chen about what quality of life means to us, what medical interventions we'd want or refuse. These aren't easy conversations, but they're necessary. We don't want to burden Sophia and Daniel with decisions we should make ourselves. We're taking control of our ending the way we took control of our trauma.
And we've made peace with the fact that we won't live forever. Sounds obvious, but when you're young, you think you have infinite time to fix relationships, achieve dreams, make amends. But we're 75 and 73. Statistically, we probably have 10 to 15 good years left if we're lucky. So we're not waiting anymore. Not waiting to travel, to speak our truth, to help others, to enjoy our grandchildren. We're doing it all now. Because now is all we really have. Tomorrow is a promise nobody can keep.
Bob and Linda, our neighbors, they've become like siblings to us. Last week, the four of us went to a concert, some old rock band from the 80s, and we sang along to every song even though our voices are terrible. We laughed so hard Eleanor snorted wine through her nose. Bob fell asleep during the encore. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. These are the memories we're making now, the ones that matter. Not fancy parties with people who don't really like you, but genuine moments with genuine people. We should have prioritized this decades ago.
Sometimes young people ask us, "What's the secret to a long marriage?" And we always tell them the same thing. There's no secret. It's work. Every single day, it's choosing each other. It's forgiveness for small things and communication about big things. It's giving each other space to be individuals while building something together. It's laughing at stupid jokes and holding hands during scary movies. It's fighting fair and apologizing quickly. It's being teammates, not opponents. Michael and Vanessa never figured that out. They were always competing, always keeping score.
Marriage isn't 50-50 like people say. It's 100-100. Both people giving everything they have. Some days Arthur gives 90 and I give 10 because I'm struggling. Other days I give 90 and he gives 10. But we're both always showing up, always trying. That's what Michael saw growing up, two imperfect people working hard at something difficult. But somehow he learned the wrong lesson. He thought marriage was about what you could get from it, not what you could give to it. And that's why his ended.
We've started leaving reviews and testimonials for Patricia and her law firm. She saved us, literally saved us, and we want other people to find her. We've also donated to legal aid organizations that help seniors who can't afford attorneys like Patricia. Because we were lucky, we had some money to fight back. But there are thousands of older people out there being abused by family members who can't afford help. If our story and our donations can help even a few of them, then some good came from all this pain.
The YouTube channel has grown beyond anything we expected. Almost 200,000 subscribers now, thousands of comments from people sharing their own stories. Some are heartbreaking, stories of abuse far worse than what we experienced. Others are hopeful, people who set boundaries and saved their relationships. We try to respond to as many as we can, offering advice, encouragement, connection. It's become a community, this online family of people who understand that blood doesn't always equal loyalty.
We're also writing articles for AARP magazine and other publications about elder rights and financial protection. Getting paid to share our expertise, how about that? At 75, I'm having a second career as an advocate and writer. If you told me 5 years ago that I'd be doing this, I'd have laughed. But life is funny like that. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you open doors you didn't know existed. We walked through those doors because we refused to let Michael's betrayal be the end of our story.
People often ask if we have any regrets. Of course we do. We regret not setting boundaries sooner. We regret enabling Michael's entitlement. We regret the years we wasted trying to please someone who couldn't be pleased. But we don't regret loving him. We don't regret giving him opportunities. We don't regret being generous parents. Because those weren't mistakes. Those were expressions of love. The mistake was expecting gratitude and respect in return. Love shouldn't be transactional, but it also shouldn't be self-destructive.
The biggest lesson we've learned, the one we want everyone to understand, is this: you can't pour from an empty cup. For decades, we poured everything into Michael: money, time, energy, emotional support. And we emptied ourselves in the process. We became shells, existing only to serve his needs and wants. And when he still rejected us, we had nothing left. We had to rebuild ourselves from scratch, figure out who Arthur and Eleanor were without the identity of Michael's parents. That rebuilding was painful but necessary.
Now we protect our energy fiercely. We say no to things that drain us. We say yes to things that fulfill us. We choose relationships that are reciprocal, not one-sided. We invest in people who invest in us. And you know what? Life is so much better. We're not running ourselves ragged trying to earn love from someone who won't give it. We're not walking on eggshells, constantly anxious about saying or doing the wrong thing. We're just living authentically, and that's incredibly freeing.
Last week, Daniel brought his girlfriend to meet us. A sweet girl named Maria, studying to be a veterinarian. She was nervous, kept apologizing for everything, clearly worried we'd judge her. And Eleanor took her hand and said, "Maria, in this house, you're welcome as you are. No performance required, no perfection expected. Just be yourself and love our grandson well. That's all we ask," the girl cried. Daniel told us later that her own family is cold and critical, so our warmth shocked her. It costs nothing to be kind, and it means everything to someone who is starving for it.
We're planning a small Thanksgiving this year at our house. Sophia, Daniel, Maria, Robert the foster father, Bob and Linda, and maybe a few people from our support group who don't have family. No formal seating, no expensive china, just good food and better company. People who actually want to be there, who appreciate the invitation, who understand that family is chosen as much as born. This is what holidays should feel like: warm, inclusive, joyful. Not like Michael's nightmare Christmas party.
Michael's release date is in 6 months now. We've talked about it extensively with Dr. Chun, with Patricia, with each other. And we've decided we're not reaching out, but our door isn't locked. If he contacts us with genuine remorse and a desire to rebuild, we'll consider it carefully. But we're not holding our breath. Prison changes some people for the better, but it makes others bitter and vengeful. We're prepared for either outcome. And we're at peace with whatever happens because we know we did everything we could.
The truth is, whether Michael comes back into our lives or not, we'll be okay. That's the real victory here. We're no longer dependent on his approval or affection for our happiness. We've built a life that's full and meaningful without him. We have Sophia and Daniel, we have friends, we have our advocacy work, we have each other. Michael is welcome to be part of that life if he can respect it, but he's not necessary to it. That independence, that self-sufficiency, is something we never had before.
We keep Michael's baby pictures in a box in the closet. Not displayed, not hidden, just stored. Sometimes Eleanor takes them out and looks at them, remembering the innocent child he was before life and choices shaped him into someone else. I don't look at them much anymore. It hurts too much. But I don't begrudge Eleanor her memories. She carried him for 9 months, nursed him, raised him. Her grief is different than mine, more visceral somehow. I respect that. Everyone processes loss differently.
But I also have pictures of Sophia and Daniel all over our house. Their graduations, birthdays, random Tuesday afternoons in our garden. These are the grandchildren who chose us, who value us, who make room for us in their lives. They're proof that family can be repaired across generations, that the mistakes we made with Michael don't have to define our relationships with them. We're getting a second chance at being grandparents, and we're not wasting it. Every moment with them is a gift we don't take for granted.
Arthur Jr., we almost forgot to mention him in all this. That's our grandson's full name, Daniel Arthur Martinez, named partially after me. When Robert told us Daniel had chosen to take his foster family's last name legally and wanted to add Arthur as his middle name, I cried. Actually sobbed in front of everyone. Because my own son rejected everything I tried to teach him, but my grandson, who I barely knew until recently, chose to carry my name. That meant everything. That validated everything.
So here we are, 73 and 75 years old, starting a new chapter we never expected to write. We're advocates, storytellers, grandparents, survivors, and warriors. We're imperfect people who made mistakes but refused to let those mistakes define us. We're Arthur and Eleanor, not Michael's parents but our own people with our own worth. And we're finally at peace with who we are and what our lives have become.
If you're out there experiencing something similar, if you're being manipulated by family members, if you're being made to feel worthless and stupid and disposable, hear this. You're not. You have value independent of what anyone thinks of you. You have the right to protect yourself, even from people you love. You have permission to set boundaries, to say no, to choose your own well-being over someone else's wants. It's not selfish. It's survival. And you deserve to survive. You deserve to thrive.
Our story could have ended in that mansion foyer on Christmas Eve with strangers laughing at us. It could have ended with us homeless and broken and defeated. But it didn't. We chose a different ending. We chose to fight back, stand up, and rebuild. And now we're here, happy and healthy and surrounded by people who genuinely love us. That's not a fairy tale ending. That's a real one, earned through courage and hard work and refusing to accept defeat. And if we can do it, so can you.
Take care of your parents. Take care of your grandparents. But not out of obligation or expectation of inheritance. Take care of them because they're human beings who gave you life and deserve dignity. Call them, visit them, ask about their lives, and actually listen to the answers. Don't wait until they're gone to realize what you had. Because one day, you'll be old too. And the way you treat the elderly today is the way your children will treat you tomorrow. The world goes round, and karma is very, very real.
And to the young people watching who think their parents will always be there, who take them for granted, who see them as obstacles or ATMs or burdens, stop. Right now, stop. Pick up the phone and call them. Tell them you love them. Ask them about their lives. Learn from them while you still can. Because time is finite, and regret is heavy, and you can't undo the past. Michael will live with his choices forever, whether he admits it or not. Don't be Michael. Be better. Be kind. Be grateful.
This story doesn't have a neat, tied-up ending because life doesn't work that way. Michael's still in prison. We're still healing. Sophia and Daniel are still building their lives. The future is uncertain. But that's okay. We've learned to live with uncertainty, to find peace in the unknown. We don't need closure or perfect endings. We just need each other, our principles, and the knowledge that we survived the storm and came out stronger.
Someone asked us recently, if you could go back and change everything, would you? And Arthur answered before I could. He said, I'd change how I responded, but I wouldn't erase what happened. Because without that pain, we'd still be those people who let everyone walk all over us. Without that betrayal, we'd never have discovered our own strength. Without losing Michael, we'd never have truly found ourselves. And he's right. The worst thing that ever happened to us became the catalyst for the best thing, our transformation.
So if you're in the middle of your own nightmare right now, hold on. Hold on tight. Because on the other side of that pain is a version of you that's stronger, wiser, more authentic. A version of you that knows your worth and won't accept less than you deserve. A version of you that can look in the mirror and feel proud. The journey there is brutal, but the destination is worth it. We're living proof.
We're not done yet. We've got Ireland next month, Sophia's first semester at Stanford to celebrate, Daniel's senior year to attend, more videos to make, more people to help, more adventures to have. We're living loudly and proudly, refusing to shrink or hide or be ashamed. We're 73 and 75, and we're just getting started. This is our golden age, and we're chronicling every moment.
Take care of your parents, yes. But also take care of yourselves. Because one day, when you're old, you'll want your children to see you as we wish Michael saw us, as human beings worthy of respect, dignity, and love. Not as bank accounts with legs. Not as obstacles to inheritance. As people. Complex, flawed, beautiful people who did their best and deserve grace. Break the cycle of entitlement. Choose compassion. Choose integrity. Choose love.
And remember, the world goes round. What you put out comes back. The way you treat people today shapes the treatment you'll receive tomorrow. Be kind. Be fair. Be honest. And when people show you who they are, believe them. Then act accordingly. Protect yourself without apology. Love yourself without condition. And live your life on your terms, not anyone else's. This is Arthur and Eleanor, signing off from Golden Age Chronicles. Remember, it's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to be who you were meant to be. Thank you for listening to our story. Now go write yours.